HD2 and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the second verse is the same as the first. UConn repeats as national champions.
The off-season conditioning program next week.
The Buffalo Bills select
Mike Danger.
If you're on the road and you see a sign and it has a cartoon beaver on it, Gino, you follow that sign. You follow it to Nirvana. I'm talking about Buc-ee's. You need to take a road trip just to experience the greatness that is Buc-ee's.
Gene Battaglia.
Yes, it is the celebration of wealth. The Masters. Fantastic. By the way, you can't have a Masters steak without using this voice. Hello, friends.
My first dark horse.
a home run for Juan Soto.
First Yankee Stadium homer for Soto in pinstripes.
The Mets win. Put it in the books.
Let's go Mets.
The S word.
Rochester has its magic number down to 1. Playoffs?
You look like Max Headroom.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Good pull.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome on into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950. In the free-to-download Odyssey app, we've even got our video stream up and rolling for you now. You can watch the Sports Bar on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. We are streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. You can even hear us on your smart device when you ask it to play. 95.7 The Fan. I am Mike Danger. That is Gene Battaglia.
And I feel like, as a person, I took a step forward last night. I'm out watching the basketball game, but also on Mets and Braves. And in Atlanta. And the Mets fall behind 4-0. And then they rally.
They did.
And then they hold on. Atlanta blows a 4-0 lead. And I'm talking just my voice stating facts. 9-8 was the final. And Mike Danger, I looked at my phone. And I thought, should I text somebody the gif of Jerry Seinfeld eating popcorn that says, that's a shame? Should I just do the guy who tries to hide his smile and not? And no, I didn't do any of that.
Didn't engage.
Because I realized it was April 8th at the time. And we shouldn't be doing those things in the month of April.
Nice win for the Metropolitans last night.
That was good.
Take that one.
Yeah.
I think a little lucky. I mean, I was watching your Mets last night. I was watching, not paying close attention, but watching it. There's some flaws. They were down. They had the lineup was not.
Their starting pitching is to hair on like that. No.
Yeah, no. It was ugly.
And
there's a couple of moments there where the Braves are like, yeah, we can rally. We can rally. We can rally as well. Watch what we can do. I mean, there was a couple of close calls there late in the game, but they do hold on. That said, would you be comfortable predicting a Mets victory tonight against these same Braves?
No, I'm sorry. Danger. This is the new me. I didn't text. I didn't tweet. I am talking in calm, measured tones.
Okay. Good.
I'm evolving as a person.
Oh, that's big of you. And I think I'm going to take credit for that. That's my influence on you. That's me, that's me basically shaming you to take a different course in your fandom of the New York Mets.
No, don't take credit.
I don't like labeling you or the Dandalorian or anybody who listens to this show who happens to be a Mets fan as a social misfit. I need to see action. And what you're showing me is action. Not just words, but action. And that's what I'm looking for here. So, I think years and years of shaming you and calling you a social misfit for being a Mets fan is finally worn on you. And now it was almost like the last few seasons have been almost like a lengthy intervention. It's time to change course.
Well, 2 seasons ago, really good, 100 wins, didn't happen. That really hurt.
You knew how it was going to go. That was when they got bounced by the Padres, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Everybody knew how that was going to go. You knew it. Everybody knew it. This is nice. This is a new. Now, if this continues, I mean, we're going to do frequent check-ins here to make sure you're okay. We're still in early April. May, I could see it could get a little bit exciting. We're gonna check it periodically.
If the Mets sweep the series in Atlanta,
you can't say anything.
I don't have anybody to call.
You can't.
Who do I call?
Gene,
I don't have a sponsor.
You
or anything.
sweep the series in Atlanta. Text me. I'll be your buffer. I'll be your, what do they call your sponsor? I'll be your sponsor, Gene. I will be your sponsor, and I will say, Gene, it's early April, and sweeping the Braves now means nothing.
Oh,
it means nothing. It means nothing. Zero. The Cubs won 2 or 3 from the Dodgers. You know what? Don't care. Doesn't matter.
Oh, who cares?
It's. I can't get excited about it. It's early April. You want to see them play consistently over a long stretch of time? Great. That's good. We could talk about that, but we know how this goes. If you get off to a hot start, we know how it goes. If you're a Mets fan, you know how it goes. It's a long season. But this is nice. I am proud of you.
I'm trying. And you're taking credit for this. I didn't see that coming.
This is a multiple year intervention that I've been working on. Just, sometimes you have to shame people into making a change. And I think that's what I've done over the course of the last few seasons. And Catalana is also a part of this as well.
Well, don't give him any credit.
I give him a little credit. He's more the hammer. Like I think I'm more subtle. I play the Mets music and call you a social misfit. He'll come in and just eviscerate Mets fans, call you like little, what does he call Mets fans? Like little 13-year-olds at the parade.
Yeah, like cotton candy or whatever. I've heard those analogies. But on the other hand, do I want to be miserable Philadelphia fan?
Oh, God.
See, I look at your Chicago fandom. It's kind of sad. Like rare glimpse.
I know.
Last year in August, we were like, I'm so excited about this season. I should go and.
I was thinking about going to a game. And week 1 happened. And all bets were off. After week 1, they lost to Green Bay. They had an opportunity to, show up week 1, beat Jordan Love, beat Green Bay. Didn't even show up. I even got excited at the end of last season. Justin Fields has come on a little bit here. They actually look with a defense now that has a pass rush like a competent team, like they're functioning properly. If they can beat Green Bay final week of the season, that bodes well for the future. Justin Fields didn't even show up. So now I'm in this 6th cycle. I am. They're going to draft Caleb Williams. They're going to draft a guy that's some people are saying is a generational can't miss quarterback prospect along the lines of Andrew Luck. They can't possibly screw it up. And I know in the back of my head, of course they can screw it up. That's all they do is screw up quarterbacks. But I'll be excited. I'm in the doldrum that Bills fans were in for years and years and years during the drought, where you just got excited about pretty much anything. Like, any signing is great.
Yeah. Every year there was the hope. Here's your hope.
Yeah.
Open up wide. Yum, yum, yum.
Yep.
Some hope.
Yep. I'm absolutely there. I'm guilty of it. And I'm saying this now in the beginning of April. I know that by the end of the summer, you will be hearing me again say, which game am I going to watch Caleb Williams and the Bears? Which game am I going to Chicago with my buddy Tony? We're going to go and just tear up Soldier Field. Which one are we doing? Which one am I circling? When that schedule comes out, we'll start talking about it. And I'll have to question myself. Do I want to invest in that team? Do I want to invest in a weekend in my favorite city watching my favorite team, or do I want to put that money towards a future? Where is my money best spent?
Well, when you are there on the ground floor as a fan, there's something satisfying. Like for anybody that had their doubts about Josh Allen, but then you were there against the Jaguars in November of his rookie year, and you saw Josh Allen over the top beating Jalen Ramsey. Wow, there's something here. Anybody was in this. So, if Caleb Williams is going, look, any first-year quarterback is going to take their lumps, but if you're there and you could say you were there, or he could just kind of flame out and be the next guy.
Right, he could be the next Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. Well, and then he ends up I doubt he ends up a backup. I think he's got a little bit more to his game than what Mitch had after basically one season as a starter at the University of North Carolina. But we'll see. It's a new day here in the sports bar. Gino has turned a new leaf. I'm excited. I got called into and pulled into the Breakfast Buzz this morning. Spazzano and Sandy on our sister station. I don't know if you knew this or not.
Well, for anybody who does not know, that's your wife, Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy from Spazzano and Sandy's my wife. If you're new to the show, we've been married for over 20 years, together for over 25. Spazzano and Sandy celebrating 25 years on the air together this year, as a matter of fact. But I'm getting ready to go on my dad run this morning, and she's like, "I need you for a second. Can you come on the air with us?" I'm like, "Oh, what?" Never happens. She does her portion of the show from our basement. She's downstairs, so she pulls me down, and they're doing their bit they call the Judgment Zone, Jerk or Justify.
What are you, the judge in this?
No, she wanted to get my take on a trend that is happening now, and I'm only bringing it up because it is relevant to what we're going to be talking about this week in the sports bar. It's golf. It's the Masters. There's a new trend, I guess, on TikTok and social media. I'm not saying anything you don't know, but it's just an overwhelming wave of thirst. What can we do next that will get us attention? What can we do next that's extreme or questionable, that will go viral, that will get people's attention? It's all it's become now. It's driving me a little bit nuts. I guess the trend on TikTok is at a golf course, honking your horn as somebody is in their backswing. Which is no different than the guy that says Baba Booey or mashed potatoes after the swing, but actually doing it during the backswing. So honk the horn aggressively as somebody's in their backswing. And there's just, I guess, a series of videos of people doing this. And she wanted me to come down there and wave a finger and be like, "You can't do that. This is a gentleman's game." And I said, you know what? In most cases, I would be like, yeah, this is a gentleman's game, and there's an etiquette to the sport, and you wouldn't want to do that. But let's face it. I mean, if you're at a driving range and you're out with some buddies, or you're at a par 3 course, or you're not at Augusta National, have a little fun. And if somebody wants to play that prank on you and honk the horn in the middle of your backswing, and you get angry at that, you're taking yourself a little too serious. You settle down. Bryson, you're not going pro anytime
I would
soon.
think maybe that this might have started with somebody doing that as a prank, and you see it and be like, "Ha! Look at this guy falling
fantastic.
over." Where could you do that in Rochester though? Like even like at Ridgemont, when you're driving by, they have the fences up. Like, is there a course that is so close?
I would start the game with driving ranges. Like, I think you can find plenty of driving ranges where you can park your car and you can still see the tee box at the driving range, and you're close enough. At least some of the driving ranges on the west side that I've been to, you're certainly close enough where you can put a good jolt in somebody with a aggressive toot of the horn.
Well, today on Get My Perks, it's Big Oak Driving Range, and you cannot park that close there. So, like, they have the top.
That's good.
So,
That's
like,
good.
They've already thought that through.
Big Oak Driving Range where you can go and not get heckled by the sound of an aggressive car horn.
So your wife was probably like, "I'm bringing danger down to agree with me on this," and then nope.
Correct. And, this week is a very important week for the sport of golf. Is golf a sport? Is it more a skill? Is it a skill? Are we talking about the Masters this week? Yes, we are talking about the Masters this week. So I thought it was a relevant conversation, given that we will be checking in with the patrons from Augusta National throughout the course of this weekend.
I love the thing that's going viral today from Augusta, where everybody, and this happens every year, somebody takes a picture of the menu and the prices, and hey, it's only $2 for a bottle of water, $5 for a beer. You want a breakfast sandwich? $2.50.
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. I noticed this during my travels last week. We were at Universal, and one of the beverage vendors, I was looking at the list of prices. They had Gatorade, they had soda, and they had bottled water. Out of the three, which one do you think was the most expensive?
Gatorade, soda, bottled water. I'm going to go with Gatorade.
The bottle of water was the most expensive item on the menu by like 50 cents, I want to say. Like maybe like $4 for a bottle of water versus $3.50 for the Gatorade, something like that, and the Coke. I'm like, whoa. if you needed more evidence that it costs money to try and be healthy, and now, there's so much out there about bottled water. Like, is the bottled water you're drinking safe? Is it good? Is it? I don't even care anymore. Like, we're all going to.
It's water.
Yeah, water's wet. We're all going to dry. I'm thirsty. Give it to me. But, yeah, to be a little bit more health conscious costs you, a little bit more at the vendor there.
Normally, I don't refer to people that just go by the burner. And this guy, actually, the burner 46, wrote it into us an X. I'm going to drive by Victor Hills in a bit. I'll be sure to lay on the horn if anyone's teeing off. No, we're not. I am not. Don't do this.
If you're out with buddies and you want to play a joke, don't do it just to be a jerk. But if you're out with buddies and you want to, play a good one on them, I think it'd be fun. I get it. I understand why that's gone viral. It's you don't expect to hear it because you're playing in this serene environment, and it's a professional and courteous game where etiquette it's the ultimate gentleman's game. Wail on the horn a little bit. Why not? That'd be fun. Just drive everybody nuts. We've got a great show lined up for you this afternoon. Here in the Sports Bar, joining us as he does every Tuesday to talk some Buffalo Bills, Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast stops by in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's been a week here we didn't expect. We talked to Matt last week, and nowhere in our conversation while you were gone, Danger, we were talking about Stephon Diggs and the possibility he would get moved. That happened on Wednesday morning.
We did talk about it, though. At the beginning of the offseason, we did mention Diggs could be on the block. Diggs could be, and I remember everybody kind of, I think Matt probably said no. I'm pretty sure Sal Capaccio said that ain't happening.
I was in that. It's not happening either, too.
So when we see the things that we don't think can happen actually happen, and know that there pretty much is a way to make anything happen if you really want to happen, you get to a point where you can't dismiss anything in terms of how a team goes about their business. So I can't dismiss the notion that the Bills will use a lot of draft capital to move up inside the top 10 and get a wide receiver to replace Steph Diggs. I can't rule out, and I know we want to rule it out, I can't rule out that they'll make a trade for a T. Higgins. Like all of these things that are being floated out there, and this is why I love having Matt on with us. All these things are being floated out there. I know we want to dismiss them and say, that's not happening, because the likelihood is it's not going to happen, but it could. We didn't think Steph Diggs would be traded. He was traded. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. We were going to have a conversation later on because one of my neighbors, you've heard me talk about my neighborhood before, right, Gene?
You're the Tony and Tony.
All the Tonys, yeah. Nikki Sines sent me a clip from Craig Carton, formerly of FAN in New York.
Who, by the way, he's still on FAN. Did you know that? He's still doing his gambling.
The weekend stuff?
No, just the public service. Because I think that's part of his commitment.
Sure.
But anyways, I digress.
He has the take that Sean McDermott is being set up to be the scapegoat for the Buffalo Bills after this season. He'll be the one that, when you can't get the Bills to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen, somebody's got to be the scapegoat, and it's going to be Sean McDermott, that there are no more excuses left. And I push back on it a little bit, and I think about it. It's like, it's not too far off from what I've been saying since the middle of last year, which is I am of the belief that Sean McDermott as a head coach can only get you so far. I haven't seen Sean McDermott I haven't seen enough evidence from him through the course of a game or a season where it's like, oh yeah, that's a guy that can win you a Super Bowl. Yet. That could change over the course of the next season, but my point was going to be where I want to immediately dismiss what Carton is saying. I can't dismiss anything. Like the idea that this time next year the Bills have a new head coach. It doesn't seem like something that would happen. And you and I will sit here and say, that's ridiculous. Sean McDermott's not going anywhere. Even if they miss the playoffs, he's probably safe. They're building a new stadium. He and Bean are a package deal. They're practically married. But you can't rule it out.
Well, we can't rule it out
entirely.
Because name me another team where the owner hasn't spoken publicly since 2019. Terry Pegula is not the absentee owner. But he's not in front of the public. Maybe that's kind of a good thing.
It's probably a good thing.
It's a separate conversation just to have the one voice being Bean and also McDermott there. not having the owner perhaps undermine one or both, but with his comments. And I certainly respect that and like that. But why you can't say, everything's in play, we can't hop inside Terry Pegula's mind. I don't know what he's thinking, but I do know he pays attention. And what I would say for Carton is the fall guy. No, I don't. I wouldn't even say fall guy. It would be like, you've had 8 years. After this year, 8. 8! Like the gold standard being Marvin Lewis, 13 years. 8 years is Jack Del Rio, okay? Like, how many years does a coach get before you realize he can't get us over the top? And that's going to be the conversation this year. We knew last year who was on the hot seat. Without question. It was going to be Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey, here you are. And sure enough.
Who's left?
It's the head coach.
Yeah.
You can't fire the quarterback, nor should you.
You moved on from the wide receiver.
The GM is doing some wizardly things, asking Von Miller to take a pay cut, somehow moving off Stephon Diggs. He's not going to take the blame. It's pretty evident here. But will Terry Pegula say, no, you know what? Yes, even though we lost in the wild card, lost in the division, who knows? Didn't even make the playoffs.
Sean McDermott's the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the notion we get. We feel like it doesn't matter. He is safe as safe can be because of the relationship with Terry Pegula. Even though we don't hear from Terry Pegula. I don't think Terry Pegula is ever going to come out publicly and say, we need to make a change at head coach. Sean McDermott is the problem with the Buffalo Bills. I don't ever see that happening. So we'll get into it with Perino next because there are plenty of things to unearth and discuss given how the landscape has changed since you last spoke to him last Tuesday with Diggs now a Houston Texan. And then later on this afternoon, 4:25, the red hot Rochester Americans, winners of 6 straight, and on a heater, second place now in the North Division. Seth Appert, head coach, stopping by at 4:25.
Yeah, as Belleville coming in Friday and Saturday, so we'll talk to the head coach as there's only 5 games left in the regular season. Still, crazy as it is, you're on this heater that's gone 10-1-1. You still need one more point to get the play. Today be the day that Seth says, you know what, we want that first round bye. We want home ice. He's all along he's been like, no, we're not talking about the standings. Well, I think the standings conversation has to come into play.
Well, here's why. You're 1 point out of first place. This didn't look attainable a month ago.
No.
Your recent play has kind of surged you into this position where you can say, we're going to have home ice. We want home ice. We want to be the 1 seed out of the North. I love it. I can't wait to talk to him. He's going to join us here in about an hour or so. We have time for your phone calls throughout the course of the afternoon. You can pull up a stool at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN, and you mentioned it. We're also on X at The Fan Rochester. If you want to engage with us, send us a tweet. We'd love to communicate with you there. Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout Buffalo Bills podcast. He's going to join us next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
As we do every Tuesday afternoon to talk some Buffalo Bills, we welcome in the voice of the Shout podcast, covering the team for the Syracuse Post-Standard, NewYorkUpstate.com, Matt Perino. The world looks a little bit differently, Matt, than it did a week ago with the Buffalo Bills. We want to start and get your take on the Bills' decision to move on from Steph Diggs and trading him to Houston, something that I think we might have discussed at the end of the offseason, and I feel like every time it was brought up, it was just dismissed, almost as if to say that's crazy because of the cap implications, yet here we are. Your thoughts on the move?
Listen, okay, you don't bring me on when the news is breaking and we talk about a whole helm topic like Stephon Diggs, all right? I'm more concerned about our garbage plate escapades that are going to be happening,
here we
it
go.
looks like, this summer. I'm pretty pumped up. I mean, I'm so excited about potentially the Bills doing camp back at Fisher. I might just do another garbage plate. Why the heck not?
Wait, whoa. Come on. You're trolling us. Matt, let's be honest. You were there and you were picking at it.
You're recoiled at the sight of it.
No way. You are Mr. My Body is a Temple, which I can respect. And the minute we walked into the venue at 11 o'clock, you're like, you guys got to be kidding me, right? And Danger and I woofed it down, and you were still picking away. So, look, that's fine, but I would be shocked if you agreed for another plate.
See, here's the problem. We've now gotten too close, Gino, that I can't put one by you. I was setting you up there. I was going to dunk on you, like, circa Vince Carter back early 2000s in the Olympics, but I couldn't get the job done. You called my bluff. You're right. I'm not going to have another.
Who's the next Bills beat reporter that we can coerce into having a garbage plate?
I think it's Getzenberg, although she always comes up with an excuse, man. So I'm going to, maybe that's the thing. I'm going to be like, look, I don't want to hear an excuse. You're not allowed to come to Rochester and cover this team if you're not going to get a plate. Yeah,
I think that would be the way to go. I think Getzenberg will. I think at this point, what is this going to be, her third camp? Mm-hmm. It's got to happen at this point. It's like a rite of passage, and I think it's the time to go. But Diggs, I think the way that you set that up there, Danger, was on the money. And I got to raise my hand and say that I was as guilty as anybody that said that I didn't see a path to this. I didn't feel, from conversations I had around the building, from what I observed, even at times, all the stuff that, we talked about in the show over the last year that seemed wrong. It never seemed like it was going to get to a place where Brandon Beane would be comfortable, being in a place where his offense doesn't have its top weapon and at what's kind of a price tag of $31 million. Now, I say that because there's a cap number of $31 million, but they're actually not paying the $19 million in cash this season that the Texans are picking up. So the more you kind of dive into the financial ramifications, this is a move on now, take the large hit now, and open up a ton of room next offseason. I just wonder how much Brandon Beane has gone through this process going back to the Senior Bowl, where they've had to do all of this work to get, to clear $50 million just to become cap compliant, to where he doesn't want to do this next year. And he also wants to be in a spot where maybe they can add around certain players. They have a couple hits in the draft once again. And the more that we've learned about the situation since the trade happened, the more it just feels like this was time to move on. Stephon Diggs seems like he wanted to be somewhere else. It seems like maybe Josh Allen is okay with it. I'm sure we'll never hear that out of his mouth at a press conference. But it just seems like all parties were ready to go in different directions. And I think that it's okay because two reasons. Number one, sometimes it's good, like when you landed at a place where a player needs so much attention internally, like target share, part of the offense. Like he became what the Bills' offense was for the last 4 seasons, and that was their identity. Now you can move in a different direction where it's seen teams like the Green Bay Packers, who have just been drafting wide receivers from the 2nd to 7th round over the last 3 years, and they're all playing huge roles for them. And, oh, by the way, they finished 3rd in touchdown passes last year, scored. So I think there's a path forward for both sides, and it seems like it was the time to do it.
In retrospect, when you look back at last season, knowing how last year's OTAs went with the Sean McDermott basically lying, saying that Diggs wasn't there when he was there, he was sent home, and Diggs' response to that, knowing how publicly that kind of all festered and became this big storyline through the course of the season, then to get to the season, to see Diggs have the production that he had with Ken Dorsey as the OC, only to see that production decline after the Dorsey change to Brady. I just have a hard time believing that this ultimately wasn't a Brandon Beane decision, but it was a Sean McDermott decision. The Sean McDermott and the player just didn't see eye to eye. He's not a Sean McDermott guy, and that's why the guy that was their top offensive weapon is no longer on this team, and Sean McDermott believes that you can get that production elsewhere. Do you think that's a fair assessment, or do you think that the other thing that could be true is that Steph Diggs' production declined because his skills are diminishing at his age at this point of his career?
Yeah, this is really challenging because, there's some people that watch the tape and come away from it saying Stephon Diggs is still getting open, he's still getting separation, he still looks like the same player that, has been having all this success all these years. And there's other, folks nationally that watch that same tape and question whether or not this is the same player. I was listening to Randy Mueller, former NFL GM. He does a podcast with Mike Sando on The Athletic, and they were talking about this in great detail the other day. And Mueller said the tape makes him very concerned from a Texans perspective if they're not buying on somebody that is on a steep decline. So much so that he suggested that the Bills might be better off at half the price to go get Odell Beckham Jr., who he thought, even in a reduced role in Baltimore last year, was still doing some of the things that you think back to in Cleveland and in New York, and they're in different places in their career, which I thought was, I haven't heard a lot of people say that. And I mean, that's one man's opinion, and I'm using that. But there is a bit of a divide on what you think Stephon Diggs is going to be. I think whether or not they're the players taking a step back, it wasn't working in this offense with Joe Brady. And so I don't know how much Joe Brady had to do with this. I don't know if we'll ever learn if maybe he just wanted a different player. He's very connected at LSU. He spent a lot of time there. Obviously, Malik Neighbors, good buddy Joe Buscaglia, put out a scorching hot mock draft where the Bills trade up to get him a couple days ago. The reaction to that was very interesting. But then Brian Thomas Jr., who's also there, maybe that's a little bit more within reasonable range. Joe Brady probably still has a lot of contacts in that LSU program. Probably knows a lot about those players, had a lot of success with Jefferson and Chase there. Maybe that's, maybe he saw the way that they struggled with Diggs last year, and they're like, let's just start anew. Let's get some young players in here. I don't know if it's going to end up being LSU player, but I wonder how much Joe Brady had to do with it.
Yeah, Matt Marino, Shop Podcast, Syracuse Post Standard, our guest here. Matt, if I had to say what I had a problem with the trade, you could say moving off of Diggs, maybe you're going to be okay if you're building the roster. That's not number one problem. The dead cap, that's not number one problem. The number one problem I had is the destination. I do believe the Bills are still in a position to win the AFC East. However, you get to the same point, and there's a team that won their division last year, and their quarterback is on a rookie deal, and you're going to get the best of Stephon Diggs, I believe, in Houston, since he also wants to, get his next contract here. So how big a threat are the Houston Texans, in your opinion, in the AFC here in 2024?
They're definitely in that tier with Baltimore and Cincinnati. I think Kansas City's still in that, top tier. I mean, Cleveland, who knows what that can look like with Deshaun Watson coming back, and obviously they still have that really good defense, but that C.J. Stroud-led offense without Stephon Diggs absolutely carved them off in the playoffs last year. So I think Houston's a legitimate threat. Now, I do think there are some complicated parts of this process. I think it's interesting that we've already seen Diggs linking up with Nico Collins and Tank Dell and C.J. Stroud throwing, I believe, out in Houston. That's one of the things that I've wondered why the Bills haven't done more of in the offseason. Like, they did it during the COVID year, and I think, teams that spend that kind of time together, like, players, I feel like there's a closeness that is born out of it. And so if they can get things kind of squared away with their offense and roles and who's going to do what, my biggest question, though, is what if they get into the season and Nico Collins is getting 8 targets and Tank Dell, when he's healthy, is getting 8 targets and Stephon Diggs is getting 6, 7, 8 targets? Like, is that going to sit okay with him? Because that was always, like, my impression is that he wanted to be, the lion in the locker room and in the wide receiver room. And I don't necessarily know if he's that anymore, even though he's getting paid like it. There's so many little dynamics that I think could start to chip away at the morale of that team. And, oh, by the way, C.J. Stroud has to avoid the sophomore slump, which we've seen happen in the past. Like quarterbacks that have come out on fire in year one that have struggled in year two. So he's gonna have a lot on his plate, and now he's got a very, for lack of a better term, high-profile, very loud teammate. And I mean loud in a good way and in a bad way. When things are going good, from a leadership perspective, Diggs is great. But when he's frustrated, he lets you know about it, or maybe even worse, his brother lets you know about it on X or Twitter.
Right. Matt, so knowing what we know, the Bills at 28, Brandon Beane's propensity to move up in the draft, you've got a couple of extra picks to deal with here since the offseason began. I don't think it's a matter of if, but just how far Brandon Beane will go up in this draft. I mean, we were joking yesterday that you could go up into the top 10 if you really wanted to grab the guy that you wanted to. I mean, there's a case to be made for going up as high as 4 and taking Marvin Harrison Jr., taking the top wide receiver off the board if you're Brandon Beane. How far do you think he'll go with the capital he has to get the guy that he wants?
Like, I feel like if you're going to go up into the top 10, it's going to cost so much. Like, even to get to, like, say 9, right? Like, maybe Rome Odunze falls there and the Bears are like, we have DJ Moore, we have Keenan Allen. Let's flip this pick. We'll go back. There's a report out that they're actually having a visit with Xavier Worthy, which is interesting because they don't have a pick late in the first round or in the second round right now. So you wonder if maybe the Bears would want to move out of that spot, add a lower level wide receiver outside of the top 3, and the Bills go up and get it. But I don't know. Like, if I'm Brandon Beane, if I'm going up for that guy, I'm going up, to your point, for the guy. Like, go up and get Marvin Harrison. Go, sell the farm and go up to number 4. Am I advocating for that? No. Like, I think that there is a path in this draft to take 2 or 3 wide receivers and, go with the Packers model, even the Detroit Lions model, which is a little bit different because I actually say more the Texans model before they traded for Diggs, with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, both of those guys, day 2 picks. I just think that you can get talent if you're trusting your evaluators, and that's another part of this. The Bills haven't really had to test out their evaluators at this position in the draft. They hit on Gabe Davis. That was a huge win, but they have not drafted a wide receiver in rounds 1, 2, or 3 with Brandon Beane as the general manager. So now that they have to do that and maybe do it twice, depending on if they can get back up, or I don't think they're going to take them at 28 and 60. But however you end up falling at wide receiver in this draft, I think you need options, and I don't think you should be afraid of numbers. I know KJ Hamler's on the roster, and Andy Isabella, and Justin Shorter. Who cares? Add players. I don't think that the Packers were worried about drafting Jaden Reed last year because they had Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson and all these other young players. You have to, at this stage, you have to accumulate talented players and see where it goes. But it's going to be fun to cover because that day is going to be – I was thinking about it. I teach on Thursdays at 6:30. My class starts, and I was thinking about it. The Bills pick at 28. Like, I could probably actually go in, do the class, get done at about 7:50, and then get over to the stadium at about 8:30 and be in good shape. But this is a year where I don't think I could do that. Like, just in case, watch. This will be the year that he does get really super aggressive and do something crazy like that.
Yeah. Or if you need somebody to teach the class there, man, I guess I could put my professor hat on for you. Danger's rolling his eyes. Matt, question about the wide receivers here.
What's the lesson going to be, Gino? What lesson going to teach us?
I got it
through it a little bit.
Well, listen, I've got 3 weeks to figure that out, Matt. So
okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah. Hey, about what's left here on the roster here, because we all expect there's going to be, another move here, wide receiver, and we've been talking about the, certainly the draft, whether that is move up, whether that's take a receiver at 28, whether that's take a receiver later. But what about the idea that the Bills could bring in somebody else? And Matt, I feel almost sheepish asking you this because, no, they would never bring in a T. Higgins. And you brought up Odell Beckham Jr. There's no cap room, but can we rule that out entirely that you could bring in one of these other veterans like an Odell Beckham Jr., like a Michael Thomas, somebody that's still sitting out there right now?
Michael Thomas, I feel comfortable saying, is probably not on the Bills' radar. He doesn't seem like, he's very vocal. He's very, it just seems very unsettled for a guy that, is trying to fight his way back into the league. I mean, he's had social media. He was the guy that was going after a reporter on Twitter and having an exchange with him on there. That's the kind of stuff that I don't think the Bills are in a hurry to add to their building. But to your greater question here, yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. I think they're going to see how the draft goes. Then you have mini camp, so you'll get a chance to kind of get everybody in, get a better idea by June what everything looks like. And, just in time for June 2nd, $10 million in extra funds to open up. Now, they have to pay their draft, their rookies. Brandon Beane said that it's going to be about $3 million. That's what it is yearly for the practice squad players now because of the 16 players that sit on that list. So, they're not going to have a ton of room per se, but, maybe there's a move or a couple on the other side of June 1st where the Bills can kind of try to get better. And who knows, he keeps bringing up, being that is, they start playing games in September. I wouldn't rule out maybe a player gets cut, final cuts in August. Maybe that's a route that they decide to go. Maybe Odell, in the same way it went with Baltimore, doesn't sign all offseason, and the Bills don't like what they're seeing in the spring, and they're like, yeah, we got to add another veteran to the group. I think all those scenarios are in play, and I don't think that I think they're just waiting to see what this thing looks like at each stage before they make the next decision.
Matt, and take this in the spirit of anything is possible. Even the things that we thought were impossible do happen from time to time, like Steph Diggs getting traded. And I'm bringing this up because it was sent to me by a friend who found a piece of audio of Craig Carton basically saying that the Buffalo Bills are setting up Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott is potentially a fall guy if the Bills don't make it to the Super Bowl this year because he can't get to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen and then all of these moves and everything. And why I don't dismiss it entirely. I know Sean McDermott is safe. I know that there's no hot seat for Sean McDermott, and I can't imagine how poorly the season would have to go. But it does feel like every year there is somebody that's in line to be the scapegoat if something goes bad. Except for this year. So if things don't go well to start the season, who do you see as the Bills' potential scapegoat here? Who's the person that Sean McDermott is going to point to and say, we need to do better here?
That's a great question. Great conversation, too. I almost wonder if in doing the reset the way that they have, especially with the Diggs move, they haven't given themselves a little bit of a reprieve. And I say that because I just don't see Terry Pagula having the appetite to move on from either of these guys unless there's some type of uproar or team issue during the season. I still think they're going to be competitive. They have Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And unless he gets hurt, I think they're going to win games. I'm not super scared if I'm a Bills fan of any of the other teams in this division. I think the Patriots are going to be improving, but they're probably going to be playing a rookie quarterback. I know the Jets on paper look great, but man, what are they going to look like in November? Are they going to have all these guys that they have on paper now on their depth chart? Are those guys going to still be active? Or are they going to be on IR? There's a lot of question marks with that team. And then Miami's just this perennial team that just can't get over the hump, can't get out of its own way. You have an aging superstar in Tyreek Hill and a defensive line that's in shambles. I mean, I don't think Bradley Chubb will be the same player next year, and I don't think Jalen Phillips. I think he's got the best chance to come back and be impactful the soonest, but there's a lot of questions about what they're going to be up front without Christian Wilkins. There's question marks for all of these teams. And I still think if you take all of the coaches in the AFC East right now, if you're talking about confidence level in what they can do with their situations, I still think McDermott is the highest. I think Robert Saleh is a 0-3 start away from getting fired. And I think Mike McDaniel, for all the bluster, there hasn't been a lot of success there. I mean, they've had some winning seasons, but in the playoffs, it's just been not great. So I think Sean McDermott, unless the wheels completely fall off in a way that similar to like what happened last year with the Ty Dunn story, and maybe things going in a different direction. Whereas in that situation, all of that happened, and the team rallied around him, right? Like everybody kind of picked him up, and they had a great end of the season. They ran into the playoffs, and they were the only team that was competitive against the Chiefs. I mean, they scored 3 offensive touchdowns. What conversation are we having about this team? And are we even here in the same way if they don't score on that last drive there when they were driving against the Chiefs? You know, they end up maybe scoring 31 points on a team that was shutting everybody down in the playoffs. So there's a lot to still like about what they are. I know that Davis and Diggs out and a lot of new people in is something that you never know how it's going to go. But I think they have an idea. I think they have a plan. And I still think Sean McDermott, for all of his faults, should be credited with getting the most out of his rosters and the talent that's on his roster. Listen, I know that there's not a lot of like high-profile names, especially in that secondary now with all those guys gone, but nobody was talking about Trey White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde back in 2017 before they developed them into what we've known them to be. And we're coming off a year with Terrell Bernard. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I still think the Bills are in the best situation, coach-wise, roster-wise, situation-wise in the division.
Yeah, Matt, last one for me, and it's just an observation, and I'm sure you picked up on this too. Like, the one thing out of Brandon Beane when he talked last week was the admission that, hey, I didn't tell Josh Allen that this trade happened because he's still sleeping, but we talked about this possibility. Like, it was who knows how far this went in the organization, but if you're bringing the quarterback to say, hey, heads up here, whether that was Allen knew that Diggs requested it, I'm not sure, but here's my question. To what degree is this Josh Allen's team? It always has been, but now he doesn't have to defer any of the spotlight here to Steph Diggs. Certainly, Matt, my opinion, the Bills will go as far as 17 will take them this year.
I love how you set that up, Gene. Like, I think that they've stripped away all of the pieces that have been there since Josh Allen was that, green rookie, sophomore. They bring in Mitch Morse in 2019. They traded for Stephon Diggs in 2020. And they needed to kind of lift this kid up, right? Like, be this support system. The way that he's played over the last 3-4 seasons, I mean, I don't think he needs that anymore. I think that he needs to be in a comfortable place with guys that get him. It's why I think that those that have suggested a Dawson Knox trade is just like, it's one of his best friends. I think he's one of those guys, those locker room guys. I know you don't love it at the price tag, but somebody that I think is a asset in that room. But even him, like, he came up with Josh Allen, and before he was anything, Josh had already kind of developed into the guy that he is today. So I think that's a great point. I think, if you're looking around the league and, how teams have kind of morphed that have been good and had to kind of change on the fly, the common denominator is great play at the quarterback position. Green Bay wouldn't be what it was last year without Jordan Love taking that step and being an effective quarterback. Houston wouldn't be the team that they are without C.J. Stroud. You need that, and the Bills have that. So I'm interested to see what this looks like now that this truly is going to be his team. Like, if we're projecting captains right now, I wonder if the Bills go in a different approach and maybe go back to the old style and maybe just have a few, and you don't have like multiple on D, multiple on special teams, multiple on offense, because really this is Josh Allen's team.
Matt, off-season program gets underway next week. What are you working on at the Syracuse Post-Standard and New York Upstate and the Shout podcast that we could check out here leading up to it?
We got we'll have full draft coverage at the site leading up. Once they open the doors post-draft, we'll have minicamp, OTAs coverage as well. A lot of fans really enjoy that coverage because you can't be there, so we try to bring you in there. The Shout Insider text line will be lit up pretty good, especially with whatever this rookie class ends up looking like. We have a fun show at Wingnut Saturday night for anybody that wants to make the drive. We're doing a live mock draft, and we're actually inviting fans that attend that want to participate. You get a team, you get to come up, get to give your hottest Bills take, who they take, and who you're hoping the Bills will take at 28 if they're still on the board. It's going to be a fun time, very interactive. Could be a mess, couple beers in. We'll see how it goes.
Matt, appreciate you, and I'm really happy that you'll be spending a few weeks with us here in the Flower City coming up in August.
Me too, buddy. Take care. Have a great week, guys.
Yeah, and Gene's working on a syllabus for when he fills in for you.
Yeah, send that over to me.
Thanks, Matt. There's Matt Perito, Syracuse Post-Standard, covering the Buffalo Bills, sharing some insight here as we haven't had a chance to talk to him since the big Steph Diggs trade last week. The offseason programs kind of get underway around the NFL next week. Some teams are already underway this week.
Yeah, it's a big unknown here. But again, Brandon Beane didn't make that move without setting up something else. Like, I think we all expect him to move up, but to what degree?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with that. I believe if you want to ensure that the guy you're getting is going to exceed what you got out of Steph Diggs, you got to go up. You got to move. You got to get into the top 10. Otherwise, you'll get a guy. You'll get a good, competent receiver. But will you get that kind of production? Will you get that level of play? I don't know.
But good point. One that seems pretty obvious. But hey, Brian Thomas Jr. Like, okay, that's somebody that your offensive coordinator might
LSU
be able to
guys.
call. Yeah, might be able to stick together. And LSU guys, hey, they've done pretty well here in the draft.
Some takes on tap next. We'll play. I'll drink to that. Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach, stopping by the sports bar here in about a half an hour as well. We also have time for your phone calls on the other side of this break at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the second verse is the same as the first. UConn repeats as national champions.
The off-season conditioning program next week.
The Buffalo Bills select
Mike Danger.
If you're on the road and you see a sign and it has a cartoon beaver on it, Gino, you follow that sign. You follow it to Nirvana. I'm talking about Buc-ee's. You need to take a road trip just to experience the greatness that is Buc-ee's.
Gene Battaglia.
Yes, it is the celebration of wealth. The Masters. Fantastic. By the way, you can't have a Masters steak without using this voice.
Hello, friends.
My first dark horse.
a home run for Juan Soto.
First Yankee Stadium homer for Soto in pinstripes.
The Mets win. Put it in the books.
Let's go, Mets.
The S word.
Rochester has its magic number down to 1. Playoffs?
You look like Max Headroom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Good pull.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Back in the Sports Bar, it's Danger and Battaglia. Amerks head coach Seth Appert stopping by the Sports Bar here in about 20 minutes or so. The Amerks on a heater right now, 6-game winning streak. Magic number is 1 to clinch a playoff berth. That number 1 seed in the North is up for grabs as well. It's within reach. We'll get the head coach's thoughts on his team's recent play. You know, maybe it's coincidence, but they haven't lost since he came into the Sports Bar and we shared a bourbon here.
Do we bring that up to him?
I think we have to.
I think we have to.
Yeah, I mean, these are facts. These are facts.
But every time he comes in, he's got to bring a gift like
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we only accept gifts when people come by the Sports Bar. Let's get to some takes on tap here as we have time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Yeah, Danger. As we were kind of getting the happy hour yesterday, like, oh, wow. Wow. The women's championship, a monster number. 18.7. 18.7 for South Carolina, Iowa. Now, here are just the facts here. It is that's a bigger number than every men's college basketball game since 2019, the final between Virginia and Texas Tech. Every NBA game since the 2017 finals. Every baseball game, Major League, since the 2019 World Series. And every NHL game in the history of American television. That, like, the number is that big. Yeah. And Danger, I already hear what you're going to say. It's like, well, that's great, Gene. It's over. Now what's next? And look, what's next? What's the worst case scenario here? Let's look at that. Say you get only half the audience. You still get a 9 rating. Yeah. Boston St. Louis in the NHL. That was a good final, right? It did a 4.9. The World Series last year, Texas and Arizona, did a 4.7. Let's put that in the context, okay? The women's championship game, 4 times the audience of Major League Baseball's World Series. That's a big problem there for Fox and baseball, all right? Women's college basketball. Oh, and by the way, the Cubs World Series, that's the one. 21.8 for Game 7, but still, that average is at 12.9. The average of the Cubs World Series win was lower than the 18.7. Women's college basketball has arrived at the adult table of college sports. It's not going away. Now, the WNBA, I'm sorry, June, the weather gets nice. That's why networks punt on summer programming, all right? Good luck, by the way, growing in September, the finals going up against the NFL and college football.
I'm going to push back a little bit. And you said even if the numbers are half of this audience, it's still impressive. And I would say that if that happens, I'll be surprised. Because this isn't about women's college basketball. This is about Caitlin Clark. This is about a star. This is about star power. And what has me hesitant about the enthusiasm around the product is she's gone. And she's going to the WNBA. And she'll get lost in the WNBA unless they find a way to truly market her the way the NFL markets their athletes, the way we've seen athletes transcend. LeBron, she needs to be on that level, right? You know,
right.
If she's on the level of Michael Jordan and LeBron and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, then I will give the WNBA maybe, but it doesn't change. She's a star. The product is not a great product.
That's your opinion.
My opinion.
That's your opinion,
fine,
Danger.
Fine. But I think it's the opinion of a lot of sports fans, okay? And I'm just sharing that opinion. And I think because of that, because a lot of people view that product as an inferior product, absent the star that Caitlin Clark is, it's not going to do what we think it could do. Even half, I don't think it's going to get to that number. I don't think it's going to get to half the audience next year. You would need a very compelling storyline, and maybe it's the coaching. Maybe it's the Dawn Staleys and the Kim Mulkeys.
Yeah, I would just point out, you scoffed at my take when I said the women's number would outdo the men. Did the men did they get an 18-7 last night?
Well, you're on ABC versus TBS.
Right, but
that's big.
I'm just pointing that out. I don't like to say, "Oh, nobody cares I was right."
Look, I don't think the men's product is a great product either. For what it's worth, I mean, I'd rather watch the NBA.
That's also part of this too. Is that all right? You have UConn, but by and large,
that game sucked.
These teams are getting. The first half was good. I mean, Edey. The kid from Purdue, he
looked tired in the second half.
He was tired in the second half. Well, God, 37 points. This is the most ever for a losing player in the championship game. The kid carried the team. And, you got to get a little bit of help. Look, there are a lot of people, a lot of sports fans that were into this. WFAN Danger, they're not talking about Caitlin Clark. They're talking about the call.
Well, they're in New York, and the UConn is a New York product. I mean, I will be surprised. And we can revisit this next year. Next year at this time, I will be surprised if the number is half of what this year's number was. And I think it's because of Caitlin Clark. I think it's because of Caitlin Clark. I think she's a star. She's the reason why people are watching. I'm not necessarily sure that basketball fans or sports fans are watching because Dawn Staley is an incredible coach or her team went undefeated. I don't know that that's enough of a pull to get Middle America, the Midwest. And that, let's face it, I mean, Iowa being in there, Caitlin Clark being in Iowa, I think that matters a great deal. And it's a big reason why you don't see the NHL pull the numbers that they pull and why you see the NBA struggle at times with you get the Middle America, you get the Midwestern TV viewer locked in, your ratings gold. That's why the NFL is king.
If you get, I'll ask you the question this way: Auriemma, Mulkey, Staley. Now, you're not going 0 for 3. One of those three will be in the final next year. True or false?
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and so you're going to have an audience that kind of goes over time. The counter argument I thought you would bring up is this, and I would listen to this. Do the Olympics pull a big number? Are those really sports fans or are those more human interest fans? I see.
Do the Olympics pull a big number? Does anybody care? I mean,
no, they do. Yeah.
The opening ceremonies pulls a big number, right? But I don't know. I mean, I just think we, as a society, we gravitate towards storylines. We gravitate towards stars. We love stars. We love star power. Caitlin Clark has that. And now it'll be interesting for me to see. I would love to see if that star power can elevate what has been a flawed product in the WNBA up to this point. And if it can, then, she is up on that Mount Rushmore of superstar athletes that have truly revolutionized the game, that have made us view the game through a different set of lenses than we did before. The Jordans, the LeBrons, the Magics, the Larry Bird, right?
Yeah.
The kind of players that just transcend the game and change the way we view it. It's a great story, and I'm not taking anything away. I watched the game. I'm part of that rating. I was curious. I wanted to see. And as great a story and as much of a star as Caitlin Clark is, I can't get past the missed easy layups and it's not for me. It's not a product that I will watch consistently. But will I watch on occasion? Sure, but it's got to be a compelling story.
But what I'm pointing out, Danger, is you can't ignore the data. The data is, I'm saying, I'm taking away.
No, the data's there. I get it, but the data's there not because the game has arrived. The data's there because Caitlin Clark was in the game. That's my point. That's my take. The game, you could say that women's college basketball has a seat at the table, and I'll listen to that. But Caitlin Clark isn't going to be playing in the national championship next year. She's going to be playing in the WNBA.
No, but one of these three characters, one of these coaches that if I say, hey, you're going to have an opinion, let me just make sure I get the data here on the Olympics. The Tokyo Olympics, this is the lowest rated ever, according to The Athletic. And maybe it was because of the time change. Maybe it was because of, we were still messed up with COVID. 15.6, that averaged.
In prime time.
No, just overall.
Overall.
So that tells you
How much of that average, though? What I'm curious about is how many people just watch the opening and closing ceremonies, and how many people only watch in prime time?
The Olympics in Tokyo averaged 15.6 million viewers in prime time across NBC's various television and digital platforms in August 2021. The Tokyo Games were the first Summer Olympics to average fewer American viewers than the preceding Winter Games. So what will happen this year is, okay, the time difference, let's see if it's not great, but it's better than going over to Tokyo,
right,
with it being in Paris. I love getting you fired up, by the way.
I'm not even fired up about it. What I love is that we've got a story, and it's shining a light on a sport that normally we wouldn't be talking about. But I think more than anything, this is a Caitlin Clark story. It's rare that you have somebody that feels bigger than the sport they play. I feel like that's where she is.
Well, let's see that could be my take that's wrong in the WNBA, because what if she does take the league by storm? Okay, I guess I have to check this out.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
So,
that will be interesting for me to see. But I think it's a Caitlin Clark story more than it is a women's college basketball story. Speaking of college basketball, look at Milt Chamberlain, Gino. Did you see him going for the bag? You know about Robbie Avila, right? The Indiana State big man, the guy who wears the dorky specs. He doesn't look the part. He's entered the transfer portal, and he's made it clear. He's looking to make $250,000 in NIL next season. And guess what? He'll probably get there. By the way, the Sycamore's total NIL pool is between $300,000 and $400,000. So he's outgrown that program. Kind of like the move here. And I know that a lot of traditionalists are going to believe that it's this that is killing college athletics, but consider what we're talking about. What a little personality, what a little star power can do for your sport, can do for your program. Man, embrace it. I can't wait for Milt Chamberlain to make the tournament next year and to become even more of a legend than he already is.
See, this is like hey, I need more attention here, I need more money, and like Indiana State, I don't fault the kid.
He's going to get it. Somebody will pay him. He will get it. He's the guy you want endorsing your product. He's the guy. Absolutely. He should go, and he will get. If he's looking for $250,000, he'll probably get $250,000.
Yeah. And then see him in Purdue next year. While we're getting off the air yesterday, comes another ace down because of an elbow injury. Framber Valdez in Houston. No word on the extent here. We got a problem here. This is terrible for the sport. And am I here with a solution? No. Yankee manager Aaron Boone, I think, laid it out perfectly. He's like, what do you want me to do? Tell my guys not to throw hard here? I don't know the answer. But I'm not going to rule something out. Maybe it is the pitch clock. Maybe Rob Manfred needs to get an independent study. That's an oxymoron. There needs to be an independent study bringing some of the best sports scientists available. I don't know the solution here, but I know this problem could get a lot worse.
Yeah, I feel like injuries are a constant. You're not going to ever eliminate them completely from the game, but the noise is going to get louder that the pitch clock is the reason, right? We've been through a season plus now of the pitch clock, and these ace pitchers keep going down, and the quality of the product is going to suffer because of it, or will it? Are we more excited by the long ball? Are we more excited by more offense because the pitching is going to be down, because these guys that throw the way that they throw are out and they're not on the mound?
Well, I think part of this too is, Boone, you want me to tell guys that not to throw hard. This is how kids are coming up and they're getting their innings managed. You don't have the Greg Maddoxes anymore that are going to be tacticians and can pinpoint everything and set up a batter 2 pitches, ahead of time.
Sure.
You don't have that chess match anymore. You just have a Spencer Strider snapping off a slider. And then 1 pitch later, he's going to snap off his elbow.
Yeah.
It's not him. It's look at all these guys going down. So that, to me, is like the number one problem is that let's just get guys in there to throw as hard, and then we're going to yank them out because we got to. No, let them learn how to pitch. I don't think anybody actually knows the art of pitching anymore.
I like that take. And Gino, I've been thinking about making some renovations around my spaces inside Chateau Dangereux. And I'm thinking, as we look at the North Division champion banner that hangs here in the sports bar for the Rochester Americans, the weather's getting nicer. watching ball games in the screened-in garage, the Garagio with the fridge full of cold ones. That's a given. What about decor in the space? Look, I've got a lot of friends who are collectors, the autographed jerseys, the helmets. You know what I'm talking about, right? And it looks good in the cave. I've never been big on that scene. The thought of paying for a signature piece of memorabilia, it just doesn't sit well with me. So I'm strongly considering here a little bit of a sharp left turn. It's a little creative. Stay with me on this. The traditional man cave decor has all of those collectibles, all of that autographed merchandise. How about if I get signed pictures of my family members and friends and hang them up all over as if they were the pro athletes? Like, think of my brother-in-law, Gary, in his bucket truck doing some work. Get him to sign that. My daughter teeing off in a match. My buddy Gene wearing his RIT gear, getting set to call a game at the Gene Policini Center. I think this is big. I think this could be big. Expand it out to some of our regulars. Like, we'll get our buddy Chris with the flight of beers in front of him. Brian painting a family room, sign the autograph picture, have it hang in the cave. Chris from South Central Kentucky whipping up a batch of moonshine. All athletes, in my opinion. All remarkable, all valuable. I love this idea for setting a tone in the man cave.
The man cave, but it's actually the Garagio, right?
Either one. Wherever your space is. Wherever you would put your memorabilia. Now your memorabilia is centered around the people who in your life that are the most important, the people that don't get the recognition that the pro athletes get, that should get that recognition.
Let's turn the camera on ourselves here, because part of it is, the building and the rules we gotta kind of be under. We really can't hang things up here, but we have just the lone Amerks banner. What you're suggesting is we should have a photo of the DeLorean, or we should have a photo of Derek.
I want Timmy Schneider's photo, autographed photo of Timmy Schneider from his beer league softball or whatever he's playing in the summertime. I want that hanging in my. I want that, absolutely. I want a team portrait with my friends that are on that Brew Crew team, and I'll hang that. That'll get some play.
See, this is how folks can know if you're really making me laugh, and I've had this cough for a month.
You should get that checked out.
You keep telling me that.
I'm not joking, by the way. I want Timmy, if you're listening, our buddy, Terrible Time Timmy. No, I want Duffy to send me a picture of him doing stand-up autograph. It's something, just whatever it is. Send me that our regulars. What are you known for? What is your thing? That's what I want to picture, an action shot of you, sign that, and you are on the same level as Josh Allen or any of the pro athletes.
Can there be a balance here? Because I would love a Chuck Muncie jersey up here.
No question, have a Chuck Muncie jersey, or at least the picture. What we should do, speaking specifically on Muncie, the T-shirts that your buddy sent us,
yes,
we need him to sign those so that we can hang them in the sports bar.
Hear that, Andy? We need
Andy. I want an autographed Chuck Muncie T-shirt, or an autographed not by Chuck Muncie, by you.
Yeah, it'd be kind of hard seeing that Chuck is.
I know. Now I can't promise we'll hang it in the sports bar because you're right. We have rules. We can't hang anything on the walls in here for some reason. Well, I know the reason, but I don't necessarily agree with it. So we're not going to hang it here, but we'll find a place for it. It'll always have a place in our heart. I like the move.
Someday we'll have a studio that looks like a sports bar. Yeah, that's the idea.
Slow down there, big dreamer.
We are way late for Seth Appert.
Yeah, Seth Appert, Rochester Americans head coach. Joining us next in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Kulik carries it in on the right wing side. Now he comes middle. He backhands. He scores. And the Amherst win it in a shootout. 5-4. Rochester hangs on after the rally from the Islanders. Kulik and Byro score. Rochester has its magic number down to 1.
There's Andrew Mossbrooks on the call. Bridgeport Islanders there, the opponent on Sunday. And the Amherst get their 6th straight win in the shootout. We welcome in head coach Seth Appert. I don't think it's a coincidence, coach. Team's undefeated since you stopped by the Sports Bar in person bringing bourbon. I think that's the kind of tone setter that your team needed, and here we are with a magic number of 1 to clinch a playoff berth.
I was actually thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I looked back and I said, this streak is all about me coming in studio.
Yeah, it's the karma. It's the Sports Bar karma. It's a real thing. You've experienced it now, and you know we can anticipate that the team will suffer no more ill doings the rest of the season.
Well, I might have to come in again a couple times just to make sure. Like it's and maybe even have some of Pesky Amherst along the way.
We would not complain about that.
No, we're not gonna say no, Seth. Wow. Well, that was a pretty good week. Now, I know I listened to some of your comments after the Bridgeport that yes, you got the win, and that's all that matters. But still, I'd have to think you're pretty pleased, taking care of business against Cleveland, against Providence, and against Bridgeport. Perfect week for your team.
Yeah, no, it was a good week. This time of year, wins are hard to come by, and the standings are tight, and everything's so important. And we did a lot of good things through the week. Cleveland game, we were excellent. We were absolutely excellent in that game. Providence game, we played a pretty darn good game against a really good Providence team. I thought the Bridgeport game was too sloppy for my liking. I get it. The back end of a 3 and 4 with a lot of travel. When you get up by what we were up, you don't want it to be that complicated. We made it too complicated, but hopefully there's a few things we can learn from it as well.
Talk about Devin Levi, where his head is at since returning to the team, Coach.
Oh, he's been great. That's what's been so impressive about Devin the whole time. How much he's embraced being down here with us in Rochester. He's never once looked at it as a negative. He's looked at it as a positive situation where he gets to play, he gets to be part of something. And, I also think he's with guys more his age. We have a lot of college guys. I think there's a comfort level. I think he's got a lot of friends on our team. And I think all of those things, make him excited about what's going on down here, which just helps him being engaged and being fully committed.
Seth Appert, our guest here in the Sports Bar, as one of the new faces here. And again, we know him from the draft there. What's your early impression about what Antoine Wahlberg has added to your team, Seth?
He's been excellent. That's been really impressive as an 18-year-old. That's not an easy ask. To come over at 18 years old in a playoff race, first time playing in North America. And he's just been really, really good. And for most of the time, I put him with Kulik and Roseanne for a little bit in the Providence game. It's probably too much youth on the same line. But the games he's been with Mersch and Jobst, that line has been outstanding. Wahlberg scored a huge goal off of an elite play from Jobst and Mersch. The play that Jobst and Mersch made to tie that game is a really underrated play in terms of it looked like a pretty good play, but like as a hockey guy, both plays that Mersch and Jobst made to tie that game and set Wahlberg up were high end, and Wahlberg's been excellent for us.
Coach, it was, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago where it looked like there was a little bit of separation in the North between Cleveland and Syracuse and kind of everybody else. You mentioned how tight the division is, and now, I mean, we started the conversation by talking about being, 1 point away from clinching a playoff berth. You could have that number 1 seed as well. I don't know how much stock you're putting into that with your guys or how important that is in terms of having some home ice advantage and getting a little extra rest. What's your thought on how the standings are shaping up here down the stretch for the season?
Legitimately, this is not coach speak. This isn't media speak. We have not talked about standings one time the whole season.
Wow.
Not once. I don't believe in it. I believe in being great today. And if you stack enough of those on top of each other, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to win every day. Practice can't always be great every day. But, if 8 or 9 out of 10 and you stack those 10 on top of each other all over the year, usually things take care of themselves. And so, yeah, we're in a better spot than we were a month ago. But at the same point in time, now is not the time to start worrying about those type of things. We want to continue to take care of what we can control, which is our process, the way we practice, how we go about our daily business. And if that leads to good things, great. And I think that, most of the time it does. And there's certainly an advantage. We're not naive. We know the standings. And there's certainly an advantage to being 1, 2, and 3 in our division. I don't know how much their advantage there is to being 1 versus 2 and 3, because in our division, 7 right now could win the North Division in the playoffs. That's how good our division is. 1 through 7 could all win our playoffs. So, 1, 2, 3, I don't think is a massive advantage. I think that but 1, 2, or 3 is an advantage being somewhere in there, because you get the bye. You don't have to play in the play-in series.
Yeah, we're talking to Seth Appert. Amherst are back home Friday night against Belleville, also Saturday night. And, Seth, I think it deserves to be said. You win, or you get 1 point. I'm not sure you want to win. But you don't want it. You don't want to back in. I mean, is the message to your team, let's do this in front of our home fans here on Friday night and just get that spot locked up wherever that may fall?
No, that won't be the message. The message will not be about playoffs at all. The message will be, let's do everything we can to give ourselves the best chance to win one game against Belleville on Friday. That's it. And that's been the message for 25 games now. One game, one day. And, so it's a tough weekend. Belleville is a hard opponent. I mean, they are mean, they're big, they're physical. Their whole decor is 6'3" to 6'5". They pose many, many challenges. And all of our focus is going to be on preparing for Belleville and trying to make sure we do everything we can with we got some good players out of our lineup right now. So doing everything we can to put ourselves in position to try to win a hockey game on Friday night.
All right, and then we wrap up the season here next week, and by the time we talk to you next week, we'll be looking ahead. I know you and the team aren't looking ahead, but you've got a match there against Cleveland coming up a week from Friday at home. And just looking at the standings, I know you're not doing it, but looking at the standings, there could be some relevance to that. I mean, you just came off a really big win, and you looked really good against Cleveland last Wednesday. Talk a little bit about that win, that 6-1 win that you were talking about against Cleveland, and how the Amherst match up against the Monsters.
Yeah, the games against the Monsters have sure been great. That one went in our favor, but the other games have been toss-ups. They're a really good team. They got a ton of talent. The American League's funny. Their lineup was just okay on Wednesday. There's quite a few guys up in Columbus at the time, and that's the American Hockey League. Like, there's so many times you play a team and you look at their lineup and you're like, yeah, that's just not their team, because there's 5 guys up or there's 2 guys out with injuries or whatever. And so Cleveland, whether it's next week or it's in the playoffs or whatever it is, Cleveland's going to get a whack of players back from Columbus, and they're going to be dangerous because they have a really good hockey team, and they're very talented at all 3 positions.
I wanted to ask you about one veteran here, Seth. That's Mason Yops. Gets to 20 goals on the season here for your team. And just the idea that, and for folks who don't remember the story, he was with your team, gets traded to San Jose, but then as a free agent comes back and makes that decision. I think Seth is on a motorcycle there or something. But
I was not, but somebody came by the house on a motorcycle. Yeah.
What is Yops meant to your team here, and the idea that actually, yeah, you know what, that is a good place. I'd like to go back to Rochester.
It says a lot about who he is as a human being, and it also says a lot about what he values. He found a home here in Rochester. He's 5'8", right? And he wasn't drafted, and he was a college free agent. And the first few years of pro hockey didn't go good for him. He and I have a relationship that goes back over 10 years because I tried to recruit him in college.
Oh.
And so there's a little history, there's a little trust there. And I think that first year didn't go as he planned or I planned for him, but we knew he was our type of teammate, our type of human. And so what we did is we made it a priority to go sign him again. Which is funny that you trade a guy and you go sign him again. And so I just can't state enough how valuable he's been to our team. Not only in his play and how good he's played and how much he's scored. He's a culture driver. He's right up there with Mershon, Prow, and Byro and Murray in terms of the leaders in our locker room. And he's just a great success story here in the last couple of years for Rochester.
Amherst are hot, winners of 6 straight. Belleville, the opponent, both Friday and Saturday night at Blue Cross Arena, and 1 point away from clinching a postseason berth. Head coach Seth Appert, good with his time, joining us every Tuesday at this time here on The Fan Rochester. Best of luck this weekend, Coach. Let's do it again on Tuesday.
Thanks, guys. Good to be on.
All right, thanks, Seth. Man, I thought today was going to be the day. Yeah, we want to win the division. Nope. We're just going to – He's got like 18-year-olds on this team. You got to keep everybody focused.
I
one
guarantee.
step at a time.
He said if they're not naive, they know the standings, but they're not trying to pay attention to the standings. And I'll agree with him on the idea of 1 through 3. Is there really that much of an advantage? I mean, if you have 1 and you have home ice throughout, I suppose. But, it really is avoiding that first play-in.
You don't want to be 4 or 5. And I would actually make the argument that 2 actually might be better than 1. And here's why. Because, 1 is going to be playing a team that just had to fight their way in, where 2 has to play a team that's on equal rest as you. Sometimes that team that has been playing, has a little bit of an advantage over the team that's been resting in hockey. That's the way it works. I apologize to Luke. He has been waiting a long time. Wants to talk some Buffalo Bills here. Luke in Rochester. Thank you, buddy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. I agree with you guys on Caitlin Clark being the draw, but I'm calling about the Bills. I don't think that Bean has to trade in the top 10. I don't really like Harrison Jr. or Duze or even Neighbors, but I do like Brian Thomas Jr. And I think he's the best receiver. He's in his second. He's supposedly a chair of his own in the second line, but he's better than the other 3 because he has exceptional body control. They don't, and great hands. He really came on in just his last year. But you guys were talking about Brady and having connections with LSU, and the way Bean seems to assess receivers, he knows that Thomas is probably the top guy. I don't know how many other NFL GMs know that. Seems like the Bears know the other 3 out there from what you guys were saying with them interviewing Worthy. I read an article out of Raiders land. It suggested that did an analysis about the Bills and Raiders trading the number 13 pick. It would cost the Bills their first, a second, and a third, second and third next year, or they could intertwine it. I bet you that Bean will trade up to 13 and pick Thomas if he's there.
Okay. All right. The Raiders trading down, and I read that too. And Luke, thank you for holding. Anybody wants to jump in, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Look, you could say, hey, Thomas is the best wide receiver in the draft, and we're going to get him. Well, who's to say another GM might actually kind of think the same thing, and all of a sudden he goes in the top 10?
I think the thing that catches the eye of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott more than anything, and Luke was talking about body control, it's separation, man. I don't think size is a thing. I mean, like, they want size, they want athleticism. Obviously, you want those traits. But if you can separate, I think that's the musk that attracts them to the wide receiver. And
what the guy you just traded away was elite at that.
That's right. And so if you can, if one receiver, if they evaluate a receiver who has an ability to separate more so than another big name prospect, that's going to be their guy. I think it's always going to be about separation with these guys.
I would just say route running in general. And that's why I would make the argument that don't get all nervous and jerky if the Raiders at pick 13, oh my gosh, I didn't see the Colts taking a wide receiver. They took Thomas at 15. I think if the Bills stayed at 28 and took Ladd McConkey, that would be just fine too.
I would live with that.
Sure.
I would be okay with that.
And then you have this capital of second-round picks next year, including the one you have this year?
It would feel a little out of character for Beane to sit.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Even if they said Ladd McConkey is the guy, I could see Buffalo just trading up a couple picks because guess what? You're going to hear me say this again and again and again.
City.
It's 32.
Yeah.
They're going to try to move up.
Kansas City's going to want to get their guy too. They don't want to get burned with their wide receiver this year like they got burned with McDuffie, their corner, just a couple of years ago. They wanted the guy that they wanted was McDuffie, not necessarily Kyer Elam. And now they're dealing with that. And they're dealing with the deficiencies of Kyer Elam versus what we've seen out of McDuffie with the Chiefs, who went up above the Bills to get them. Boy, are we allowed to talk about where we're going to be for the draft this year?
Of course. Yeah, we're going to be out both Thursday and Friday. So Thursday, this has become our tradition.
Yes, it has.
We love the folks at Three Heads Brewing, and they're going to invite us back here Thursday, draft day, 3 to 6. As then afterward, we can hang out, have a cold one.
Can I share another tale from my vacation last week? I travel with my backpack, the same backpack that I bring with us to our live shows and to work, and I was taking something out of my backpack, and it was almost like an explosion of wealth came out of my, and that wealth came in the form of Three Heads drink chips. Like I got a handful of Three Heads drink chips just burning a hole in my pocket, in my backpack. And so don't worry. The plan is we will be using those Three Heads drink chips when we're all celebrating the NFL draft at the end of the month.
Yeah. And if you want to say, hey, I want to hook up with you guys on Friday of draft weekend, we will be in Chili once again.
Oh,
yes. We're good friends at the Tap Room of Bill Graves, as we'll be enjoying some of their delicious specials. And what a good way to start the weekend there. We'll just kind of be hanging out. We were there for the opening day of the tournament. That was like sports nirvana with all the monitors around us.
And Monica was teasing something. She had like some pretty significant prizes.
Right. So like we're gonna be hooking people up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So if you're a regular to the sports bar, we'd love to hang out with you in person as we do our live shows on occasion. Three Heads Brewing on Atlantic Avenue. That'll be for day one of the NFL draft. We'll be there live from 3 until 6. And then for that Friday of the NFL draft, day 2 of the draft, we will be in Chili, at the Tap Room at Bill Gray's in Chili from 3 until 6 as well. We look forward to seeing you out as we get ready for the NFL draft. It's one of our favorite times of year here in the sports bar.
We can share a cold one and maybe a win or two.
Happy hour is next in the sports bar, and you can be like Luke. Join in at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. I know a lot of you have been stewing on what the Bills can do now that Stephon Diggs has been traded. And there's an obvious need to bring in a wide receiver maybe as early as that first round. Share your thoughts. Let's get the conversation going at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
And the second verse is the same as the first. UConn repeats as national champions.
The offseason conditioning program next week.
The Buffalo Bills select
Mike Danger.
If you're on the road and you see a sign and it has a cartoon beaver on it, Gino, you follow that sign. You follow it to Nirvana. I'm talking about Buc-ee's. You need to take a road trip just to experience the greatness that is Buc-ee's.
Gene Battaglia.
Yes, it is the celebration of wealth. The Masters. Fantastic. By the way, you can't have a master steak without using this voice. Hello, friends.
My first dark horse.
a home run for Juan Soto.
First Yankee Stadium homer for Soto in pinstripes.
The Mets win. Put it in the books.
Let's go, Mets.
The S word.
Rochester has its magic number down to 1. Playoffs?
You look like Max Headroom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Good pull.
Yeah.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Happy hour in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free to download Odyssey app. Maybe you're watching along as we have our stream up on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. You can even get The Fan Rochester on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Now that we have the benefit of over 24 hours, can we just call it for what it was? I mean, it was cool being up on the roof and it was cool watching the sky go dark. Mm-hmm. But as far as what the eclipse meant to our community, it's kind of a bust, wasn't it?
Well, they were going off of data from other places where you're looking at all the number of visitors, but I think a lot of people, maybe within driving distance, looked at the forecast and said,
Pittsburgh seems nice this time of year. Let's go where the sun is shining, right? Yeah, that's unfortunate. Like it feels like it just didn't live up to the hype or the expectation. As cool as it was to do it, I'm not dismissing any of that, but now that we've moved on from that, and we've got a national champion crowned in college basketball, we now can once again set our sights on the end of the month, the NFL draft.
It's coming. It is coming. April 27th. It will be here. We are very excited. We'll be out once again at Three Heads Brewing on the Thursday of the NFL draft. Also, day number 2, we will be out at the Tap Room of Bill Gray's out in Chilai. And the idea that, I don't think you've ever had the Buffalo Bills telegraph their pick or the position where they have to. They have to take a wide receiver here. I mean, people will lose their minds, Danger, if it ends up being Cooper DeJean at pick number 28.
Yeah. Will they lose their minds? Because I as much as I believe now they've put themselves in this position to get a stud wide receiver in the first round, I still won't be surprised if they take a defensive player. Like, if they're following the first round and wide receivers are going everywhere and first-round talent on defense is still there, you don't think Sean McDermott's going to be like, oh, that's our guy. We got to get that guy.
Yeah, they could just look at what Green Bay has done, as Matt Perino pointed out. Like, they don't take first-round receivers, and they rebuilt a nice little core with what they have here. Kansas City they rebuilt their core after you saw Tyreek Hill leave for greener pastures. The idea that, and also I bring up Cooper DeJean because I don't know if you knew this or not, Danger. He wrestled.
Oh, Sean McDermott is head over heels for any prospect who has that on their resume. Yeah, I know that the wide receiver train whistle has only gotten louder since the trading of Stephon Diggs, but I'm not going to rule it. If the trading of Stephon Diggs has taught us anything, we can't rule out anything. We can't. The things that feel like they're impossible or can never happen because of this reason or that reason actually can and oftentimes do happen in the NFL.
I think when you look back at the Diggs, like how did we locally, Matt put his hand up in the air. I will put my hand up in the air. I didn't think that would ever happen. I was stunned. I said at the time, Danger, while you're in, I was shocked. I didn't think because, the production outweighed whatever I don't know if drama is the right word, but whatever the behavior was that maybe wasn't to your liking. But at some point, the scales started to shift there a little bit and started to even more out a little bit. And if there was indeed a trade request, as many believe that there was, then maybe the story that we were kind of blind to were the last, how many games in the regular season, last 7 games of Stephon Diggs as a Buffalo Bill, that the production, he didn't have a single 100-yard game following that Miami home game. I mean, it went down. So at what point do you say, all right, that's enough, let's kind of get on with our lives here?
I wonder if that point actually happened before the season even started. Like, we don't know what that off-season meeting was like with Stephon Diggs and Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, the one that prompted, much concern, very concerned. Sean McDermott was very concerned that Stephon Diggs wasn't at OTAs. Well, he was, but you sent him home. Why? Did Stephon Diggs request a trade then, before the season even started?
And why would he have done that then?
Because he hated how last season went.
Yeah, you go back to the Cincinnati loss and go back to all those rumors, which we won't address here. I also think it's very interesting that Josh Allen was in the loop on all this.
In the loop to a point. In the loop in that, hey, this is a possibility. And again, if you think that maybe there was a trade request before the season even began last year, well, then Josh Allen is absolutely a part of that conversation. And he's been carrying this with him over the course of the entirety of the season. I just find it very fascinating. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the decline in production happened simultaneously with the change in offensive coordinator. And it almost feels premeditated. And we've discussed this, that it almost felt as if they were trying to win games, show that they can win games without Steph Diggs' production, despite Steph Diggs. And they did down the stretch, 6-1 down the stretch, without Steph Diggs really being much of an offensive contributor. So that makes me start to wonder, was it always about just trying to get enough production out of him where you could still see the value and know that he still has it? Because to my eyes, he still has it. And I know a lot of people watch film and see the same thing. Like, no, he's still the same Steph Diggs, but they're not using him the way they used to, or he's just not on the field, or he's just not being seen. Whatever it is, I do think that there is juice left in Stephon Diggs' game, and I think we'll see it with Houston.
Wow. If I had to say, the answer should be like 90% should say, all right, of all the Bills that were jettisoned under whatever umbrella, either they left voluntarily by free agency, either that, hey, you're cut, I'm going to land with another team. Like, lump them all in together, whether that's Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Gabriel Davis. Diggs outweighs everybody.
Yep.
Morse, okay, like he could go and provide some value there. Maybe Poyer makes a play or two. But to me, what Diggs has the ability to do down in Houston, when we talked to Matt Perino, and, the questions are, all right, like, you have Tank Dell, you have Nico Collins. Trust me when I tell you this. Diggs is a very intelligent man. He will turn on the charm. He's under a 1-year deal.
He's already done it. He's already working out with his teammates. He's doing all the things you want your teammate to do.
When Diggs came over from Minnesota, we loved it because he validated us and he lifted everything. And I've never, just get ready for all those stories down in Houston. Oh, and by the way, they're going to win games. They did win games last year. They won the damn division last year. So that's the problem I had, was there was no other team that was willing to make you an offer, or that offer from Houston was going to come off the table at some point. In this receiver crazy first round, there wasn't a team that could have said, oh, darn, we didn't get the receiver run. All right, call up Buffalo. Let's move Diggs. You couldn't have waited until draft night to do that.
Well,
and if you waited until draft night, at least you could have hid your cards just a little bit on what you need to do this draft.
Yeah, right. I think the idea that you could get a second, which is what they were wanting and what they were waiting for, I think was too great to pass up. And as much as I still believe that there's still gas in the tank for Steph Diggs, the idea that you can get a younger version of Steph Diggs in the first round of the draft, That's appealing.
Yeah.
And given Brandon Beane's history of moving up, you would think that is somewhere in the cards as well, that the guy that they go up and get will be the guy that they want, much like we saw with Dalton Kincaid last year. They wanted Dalton Kincaid. They got their guy, and Dalton Kincaid had himself a nice rookie season. The other element of the Diggs move, and we talked with Matt Perino earlier today. If you missed it, you can get it wherever you enjoy your podcast. Just search out the Sports Bar. There's no more impediments to Josh Allen's leadership. He is the dude. He's going to be the voice. He's going to be the vocal leader. He's going to be the emotional leader. He's going to be the guy. So if there was a push-pull relationship with Steph Diggs and Josh Allen, if Steph Diggs' intensity made Josh Allen better, we'll see that early this season. If Josh Allen is the report from Tim Graham that after week 1, Steph Diggs was upset, and Josh Allen's response was essentially, hey, man, it's one effing game. Well, that's the difference between the kind of competitor Steph Diggs is versus, hey, I mean, come on, man, it's 1 week. It's one game.
But quarterbacks have to kind of keep everybody even keeled. Like, you've seen the worst of Diggs, like in the locker room blowing up and everything like that. Week 1, yeah, that was a bad loss, mind you. And it was on Allen. No, like, it's going to be a younger offense. I am totally fine with everything running through Allen. Again, 17 is the most important figure in Buffalo sports, maybe Buffalo sports history, and certainly in 2024. And if Josh Allen performs to his full potential, I'm talking about MVP. He'd be the darn MVP if you're not throwing picks on the outside or being careless with the ball on a run or losing your mind in a week 1 loss. You need him at an MVP level. And if this gets him to recalibrate his game and maybe, hey, I'm not going to force the ball in an out pattern to Diggs and it's going to get picked off, is he going to put in the work to get his game up to that level?
That's where I was going to go next, because Diggs, I think, was the catalyst for that kind of offseason work, and you're seeing it happen already in Houston. Will we see Josh Allen and Curtis Samuel and Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir? Will we see what we want to see, which is the quarterback working with his receivers this offseason? And maybe we don't hear about it. Maybe it has happened or it does happen and we don't know or hear about it, but there is value to that. And when all you're hearing about is your quarterback staining his pants or ripping his pants in Paris versus the quarterback that's out there throwing to his new wide receivers. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something to that as well. I'm not saying that he can't have a life, of course, have a life. But if you want that greatness, you have to put in the work.
I will point this out, though, too. With the voluntary OTAs, Allen was there and Diggs was not. He didn't show up until which that's fine. That's a CBA. But when we get to you might say, who cares?
It does go back to the idea that Diggs wanted out of Buffalo after that Cincinnati loss. That might have been, and Peter just sent us a tweet. You can reach out to us on Elon's Twitter. That's X, @TheFanRochester. The drop from Diggs in the Kansas City game and his response to Josh Allen seemed to be the beginning of the end to me. For me, Peter, the beginning of the end was the Cincinnati loss.
Yep.
And that led to an offseason where we didn't really hear from Diggs. He didn't show up. And then we had the OTA fiasco with McDermott lying about Diggs' availability and Diggs throwing it back on the coach and making the coach look dishonest, which he was. And then the entirety of this last season, where you had a lot of production out of Diggs with Ken Dorsey and very minimal production out of Diggs with Joe Brady, and a head coach who was behind the firing of Ken Dorsey and the elevation of Joe Brady, which coincided with the lack of production from Steph Diggs. It all feels like McDermott is playing puppet master here, and it could. I'm not saying it will. It could benefit Josh Allen to have Diggs not being a distraction anymore.
Well, that's if they nail the draft, Andrew. And you're putting a lot of pressure on this rookie wide receiver, whoever's coming in, because you don't have that player coming up. It's 3rd down and 6, and you're going to put a spy on Josh Allen. How many times over the last 4 years, hey, Diggs has it, he catches the ball, and then he knows when to get down. You can't replace that production with Steph Diggs. That's why this story is so divisive. We can all recognize this was not a healthy relationship. It just wasn't. Every team, championship team, I suppose, has, nobody's buddy all the way there, and I don't need to be buddy. But this necessitated a divorce at this point? Where are you getting this production? I don't think come July 1st, after the traded white money comes off, hey, we're bringing in Odell Beckham Jr., or we're going to... Yeah, that would have been great 7 years ago here.
It's a lot to put on a rookie, but it's not impossible. And we've seen great rookie performance, wide receiver rookie performances in the NFL with good quarterback play surrounding them. And it's not entirely impossible.
No, and I would say this too, that I did really like the way Shakir came on. Is Shakir ready to be a number one? I don't think he's really been number two.
He's not a number one. Shakir is not a number one. And I don't know that he's a number two. I think your number two becomes Dalton Kincaid in this offense. And I think the number one is the guy that, and Curtis Samuel, might be your number two as well. If you're thinking of like the slot guy, the guy that can get that separation, the guy that can move the chains, very similar to Cole Beasley and how he was able to play that role early in Josh Allen's career. That's what I see Samuel as. And I think the guy that you're drafting, you're drafting to be your one. And if you feel like you can get that one in the second round, that's going to take some stones. But I can't entirely rule out, we couldn't entirely rule out the idea that Diggs wasn't going to be on this team. You can't entirely rule out the idea that they might go defense in the first round. You just don't know.
And then we'll lose our mind. 866-4326. Oh, we had Brad, but we lost him. All right, Brad, call back, buddy.
Oh, Brad in Rochester, one of our regulars. Appreciate that. Again, 585-866-4FAN if you want to join us. 585-866-4326. Mention Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast. He joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. Also heard from Amerks head coach Seth Appert last hour. Both of those conversations are available for you wherever you get your podcasts. You can search out the Sports Bar in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Find us wherever you enjoy your shows, and you'll get all of our guest appearances, as well as our entire shows in the free-to-download Odyssey app as well. That's AUDACY. All right, we have Brad in Rochester in the Sports Bar. Hey, Brad.
Hey, I really think that Diggs moving on really is going to give Josh a breath of fresh air, because he's going to have no pressure to get the ball to Diggs, to get the ball to who's open, whoever it may be, Cook.
No, we lost Brad again.
Be named in the draft, everybody. And he's just going to be able to throw it anywhere and not have to worry about, Diggs didn't get his touches. He didn't get his touches. He's going to get a little pouty. He's going to get a little agitated.
Yeah, I look, that's the positive. But on the downside, I think Diggs was such a good player that how often would Diggs make a mental mistake? Like that's the thing. Like, Josh is going to have to really, really step up his leadership. Hey, I need the route run like this.
I need you here.
I need you here. I need you there. And if you say, Josh does that. Does he? How many times over the course of last year, he and Gabe Davis were not on the same page? I don't need Josh Allen to be the Dan Marino, grab the face mask, what are you doing? Jim Kelly would do that.
That's what I want.
Well,
I do want that.
You could do that behind. I don't need it in front of the cameras.
I want Josh Allen to be a little bit more, the word I like is mattable. I don't even know if it's a real word. Just be mattable. Get mad. Get pissed off for greatness. Get in somebody's face if they're not doing it the way you want it to do. Because I think that's what Diggs did for Allen. I think he did. For as much as the pressure might be off of Allen, that concerns me a little bit. You don't have the pressure of throwing it to Diggs, but you also don't have the pressure of somebody saying, no, we need to be better than what we are if we're going to beat these guys. You want to believe that these guys are self-starters and they believe that and they're going to be self-motivated. I have to see what that looks like with Josh Allen without somebody like a Steph Diggs or without... Everybody's a competitor. They're all competitors. They're all wired differently. Diggs is another level of competitor. Just from what we saw, the way he acted, the way he wanted it, the way he needed to have it. I don't know. I don't know if that's what Brad is saying, I will say, makes a lot of sense. You don't have pressure to force the ball to Diggs. No, forcing the ball to Diggs at the end of last season, they won games, right?
Well, I would say this, too. Like, that wasn't a bad plan. It was never a bad plan over 4 years, like getting the ball to Diggs. Allen has such an unbelievable arm. How many plays in your memory could say he shouldn't have thrown it there to Diggs? That's part of it. Like, if you were just looking at the three receivers that are going to be on the field now I'm pushing aside Dalton Kincaid because, yes, I know he can go into a pattern. Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Mac Hollins? And you want to just try to hope for Justin Shorter? Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, they're not drafting one receiver. They're drafting multiple receivers in this draft. You have to. You have to.
Yeah. Will be interesting. Loved our conversation with Perino. And again, under the umbrella of you can't rule out anything. We brought this up to Perino when we talked to him earlier this afternoon. This stemmed from Craig Carton. My neighbor, Nikki Sines, sent me this clip of Craig Carton saying that Sean McDermott is being set up to be this year's scapegoat for the Buffalo Bills if they don't make the Super Bowl with Josh Allen as their quarterback. And as much as you hear that and you think to yourself, impossible, Sean McDermott is untouchable. Sean McDermott, from everything we understand, is Terry Pegula's boy. He's not going anywhere, right? Like he's married to Brandon Beane. But last year at this time, we knew who the scapegoat was going to be if things didn't go well.
Well, that's where I think it's the word there because you have a fall guy.
Scapegoat.
Sean McDermott can't be the scapegoat if he is like got the power right next to Brandon Beane. Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are tied.
Who's the guy that's going to take the fall? You're right, the fall guy. Who's the guy that's going to be that person this going into the season? Because is it the quarterback at this point? Is it going to be Josh Allen? Is it going to be us 6 weeks in going, Josh Allen without Diggs is not the guy?
Yeah, or you have a coordinator that wasn't ready for this position on the defensive side or the offensive side. You could do that cycle all over again. They're very disposable. Special teams were really bad last year. I mean, there are plenty of guys that Sean McDermott can kind of say, hey, or Sean McDermott just might go to the chill card. Hey, just be like, hey, we didn't clinch the division until week 18 last year, so everybody might just kind of chill. What I would point out to Carton is this, that sure, the Bills are going to get to that same point again. It's the playoff game management. It's when it's all on the line. When you have somebody that's kind of superior to you on the other side, and Andy Reid, that knows how to manage these situations over time. Maybe it's by trial and error.
Call a fake punt with DeMar Hamlin.
Yeah. Here, the way I would phrase this to Carton or anybody else, because I will listen to that, and we've talked about that. After the Denver game, that's all we talked about. You need another head coach to get you over the finish line. And where's the line here? Where is the line in the Josh Allen era? Well, it's not 7 years. We're coming up on year 8 of Sean McDermott. Do you give him a 9th year? Do you give him a 10th year? Now you're going into rare territory here. So that's my question is if this happens again and again and again and again, and there's another divisional loss, oh my gosh, I can't believe the opposing team hit a 63-yard field goal and won the game. Well, what are you going to do? Hey, at some point, it's on you. It's on you. And the person who ultimately makes the decisions on this does not talk to the media. Terry Pegula has just isolated himself. Maybe that's by design. It was Kim Pegula.
It's probably good.
Yeah, it's probably good that you really don't need Terry Pegula. But I can't tell you what's going on in that guy's mind, Danger. We can just make the assumption that he really, really likes his head coach and GM. But I don't know because he doesn't talk to anyone.
Yeah, I think he does. And I don't think he's going to make any changes. I even try to think what would have to happen for him to make that kind of change. A massive change like head coach, which in the NFL isn't even a massive change anymore. You mentioned it. Teams recycle through coaches and coordinators now like nothing. And to have the kind of stability that the Bills have, I think you make your team an envy of the league. There's very few teams that and they have that sustained success year in and year out. But we want more. We want, with this quarterback, we want the Super Bowl. We want a championship. That's what they're playing for. That's what they should be playing for. They shouldn't be playing for division titles. Yeah, you win a lot of football games, but ultimately you want to win the Super Bowl. You're not done. Can he be the guy that gets you there? I'm skeptical. I'm like Carton. I don't necessarily know that he's being set up to be the scapegoat, but I think that there will be times through the course of next season where we're having the same challenging conversations about Sean McDermott that we were having during the course of last season. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to change. I don't know what that looks like for that to change, other than the Bills starting off 11-0, 12-0. Come on, that's not likely going to happen. You just can't rule anything out in the NFL. The things that we think don't happen sometimes do happen. And the Diggs trade is the latest example of it.
I mean, I guess, Danger, when you and I are kind of reflecting, because that was one of the storylines where we were kind of like, oh my gosh, like some of the national media were taking victory laps over the locals in Buffalo saying, you didn't think Diggs could get traded? What did we miss here in all that? I would say this. We didn't miss anything. I actually credit Beane and McDermott for doing this. There's issues in-house. Like the rare instance in May, or June, I should say, with that minicamp. That was a huge story because we don't see this. But by and large, they're very presidential. And even Brandon Beane, he could have said lots on Diggs. He didn't. They made the move. Mm-hmm. And you kind of move on. So the management style being McDermott. We can question Sean McDermott on X's and O's. We can question Brandon Beane for taking Kyrie Elam. But the way they kind of handle things, just as management, you can learn from them. Like, if you're a manager listening to this show, look at how they take the high road on almost everything. And I think that's also part of the story is that, hey, this Diggs stuff was going on for a long time. And we only had the tip of the iceberg there.
Yeah. Well, it would appear that the offseason will be less eventful in Buffalo this year than it was last offseason, and of course the draft being just a part of it, and the voluntary workouts getting underway next week for most NFL teams. So we'll continue to follow what goes on here with the Buffalo Bills through the course of the offseason. But not to bury the lead, your top story in your sports update sounds like St. John Fisher will host training camp again. We have that to look forward to.
Yeah, Catalana reporting it, so there is no pen to paper, but if he's saying it, I believe it. And we didn't have any reason to think that it wouldn't happen. This is the way it's been here coming out of the pandemic, that, hey, we're just going on these one-year deals, and your quarterback really likes that golf course that's down the road. The head coach really likes getting away. So does the general manager. Don't kid yourself, okay? There's a lot of players that are like, we got to go to training camp. No, like, think of it in your own terms. Like, they're saying goodbye to their families. And the facilities in Buffalo, much better than for training and recovery and everything else like that. But there is a benefit. And maybe with an offense that is going to look a heck of a lot different next year. Mm-hmm. It's not a bad thing to get away here for a few weeks.
Get away for a couple of weeks and get back into the routine that you're familiar with, you're comfortable with, and Josh will probably be at Oak Hill maybe 2 or 3 of the days that they have off there.
In our conversation with Perino, I just want to give myself a pat on the back because he's saying, hey, don't bury the lead. When are we going to go for a plate? BS.
No, you called him out.
Yeah, no, you're not even. Don't even try to bait me on that.
He knows, and we know. To see a grown man recoil the way he did at the sight of our town's cuisine, shameful. I mean, I'm willing to forgive him, but I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you're from Rochester, like you go into a plate, like, hey, maybe I can't down the whole thing, but you can. Yeah.
All this talk, I want one now. I'm kind of like fiending for one right now. Let's take a break and let's come back with a round of shots. That'll have to do.
Yeah, as we shall here, as we'll talk about the S's. Not too many.
Yeah.
They're not eliminated yet.
I know.
How is that even possible? The NBA tonight. We got to follow up on that story for the RIT transfers. We'll tell you where they ended up here, and this take from Charles Barkley.
Oh, I have this.
Yeah, this.
I think we said it yesterday. Like, if it's not your thing, that's cool. It's not your thing. I get it, but like to go above and beyond to basically just say, not only should this not be your thing, but you're a loser if you like this thing. We'll get into Chuck. Always outspoken. A round of shots next. Last call before 6 o'clock as well. Join us, 585-866-4FAN. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, 866-4326.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the sports bar, it's Danger and Battaglia. Time for a round of shots.
You know, sometimes when you're just, there's change and somebody just says, hey, just get used to it, give it a little bit of time. And I'm still not used to these new uniforms, Danger. So anytime that there's a story like this, I can kind of pass along. This is from today's Tigers-Pirates game. And two teams that, all right, you're a fan of either team. Maybe you're a little bit excited about. Riley Green scoring on a base hit, top of the ninth. To help the Tigers to a lead there. He ripped a giant hole in the side of his pants sliding into home. He's coming back there with a full-on wardrobe malfunction.
Sweet. Awesome. Way to go, Major League Baseball.
Like these pictures of like the sweat coming through, and I don't know. I feel like I'm the old man. I'm like, I can't read the names on the back.
Okay, so I spent some time watching your Mets and the Braves last night, and it did like dawn on me. All right, the names are a little bit smaller on the back of the jersey. But aside from that, like, didn't really, the Braves were wearing their old throwbacks. They were commemorating Hank Aaron's 715, and they were wearing their old throwbacks, and they looked sharp. I wouldn't have known any better, except that we know that these uniforms are not what the players are comfortable with, used to, or what we, the fans, have seen. But on TV, as a product on TV, it didn't really bother me. Now, if I saw somebody do what you're describing here, where the slide, I don't know what my reaction to that would be in real time, but I will always remember watching that highlight of Earl Campbell run in the old tearaway NFL jerseys. Like, there's something cool and barbaric about the idea that you're competing so hard that your clothes just start shredding because of the work you're putting in or the resistance that you're facing. I don't know that I necessarily need to see that out of a guy sliding into home.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't need to see anybody's unmentionables.
Well, that's the part. The funny thing with baseball players, they don't care. I'm sure Riley Green didn't mind at all. Like, oh, look at this. One of the shortcomings of the S word, that's the hockey team in Buffalo. First 20 minutes, as Mike Harrington, Buffalo News, points out, Buffalo has given up 94 first-period goals. That is the most, or the worst, however you want to look at it, in the NHL this season. Buffalo-Dallas tonight. The S is 5 points out of the last playoff spot. Considering the teams ahead of Buffalo in the standings, that they have a game in hand also, there is still a possibility, a 0.1% chance that Buffalo will make the playoffs. That sounds about right. 8 o'clock tonight on the Fan.
I think they win tonight.
Dallas is really good.
I know. And that's why I think that they look, if there isn't really a chance, they're not going to be in the postseason, even though mathematically they're not eliminated. But this feels like one of those nights where they just surprise you, and maybe they catch Dallas overlooking them somehow. And
are you buying into any of the chatter about Don Granato, that his job could be in question here? Because that seems to be, I don't know if that's a real talking point, if that's just Sabre Twitter.
I feel like when we heard Paul Hamilton remind us that he hasn't even coached a game under his new extension yet, I think he's back. I don't think they make that change.
Dating back to last season, UConn basketball has posted 12 straight wins by double digits in the NCAA tournament. All 6 wins this year came by an average of 24.4 points, including last night. Hat tip to Zach Edey. He was fantastic. 37 points last night. That was the most ever for a losing player in a championship game.
Just got tired in the second half, man. Can't do it all. Caitlin Clark can't do it all. Zach Edey can't do it all. There is something that somebody would say, maybe I would say this, that, if you're going to be that star player, your play has to also elevate those around you, make those around you better, the way we saw with a guy like Jordan, right? But Edey's a competitor, and that there's no shame in his performance last night.
Yeah, I'm not sure, unless they get some really different talent in there that you can just pencil Purdue back in. But good, hey, a lot of people were waving away we're not going to trust you, Purdue, and they got further than a lot of people thought that they would.
Purdue needs Milk Chamberlain. Now that he's going away from Indiana State, stay within state, get your $250,000 in NIL, and be the star that you were meant to be, but for the Boilermakers and not for the Sycamores.
Yeah, what is? See, now I got to look this up. Robbie Avila. Yeah, Milk Chamberlain. Greatest nickname of all time. A Tennessee judge ruling that Grizzlies star Ja Morant acted in self-defense when he punched a teenager at his home in July 2022. This happened during a pickup basketball
We're still talking about this? 2022, we're still talking about this.
Well, finally the ruling came in.
This is crazy.
Yeah,
how slow the justice system works.
Well, and now for this teen, who knows if he's even a teen anymore, the attorneys are saying they're going to appeal this. Well, good luck with that. If you're like, wait, what happened to Ja Morant? He's out for the season with a shoulder injury. The Grizzlies, third worst record in the West, 27-51. Follow up to the story here regarding RIT hockey. Following the NCAA loss at Boston University, arguably their top two players jumped in the portal. They both landed at blue-chip programs. Goaltender Tommy Scarfoni now at Wisconsin, and center Carter Wilkie going up to your former
Oh, no, not North Dakota. He's going to go play for the Fighting Sioux?
Did he not know how good it is to be away from North Dakota?
Oh, no.
It's just awesome.
What made it so awesome?
Just being here. Being away from North Dakota, for us to be here, it's just great.
And to get to see Carson Wentz?
Yes, he's awesome. Such a role model for our kids and grandkids.
Did not age well.
No. But you were on vacation. Did you see where Carson Wentz landed?
Yeah, he's in Kansas City. What is he getting, 3.25?
Yeah, like
3.25.
That would be the ultimate kick. Like, oh my gosh, Mahomes is out for. Nope, we're gonna win games with Carson Wentz.
Oh God, that would.
Finally, and we teased this. There was one person who was not impressed at all with the events of yesterday. Charles Barkley on TNT has no time for your Eclipse excitement.
Well, y'all, some of them losers standing outside watching that today.
They're not losers.
Yes, they are.
It doesn't happen often.
Hey, we've all seen darkness before. Stop it.
No, not in the daylight.
Come on, man.
Come on, Chuckster. Don't hate on the Eclipse.
Come on,
listen.
I saw a loser standing watching your blimp. How about that? They were outside. Have you seen Chuck's blimp?
So you're not a fan. You're not a fan of it.
Well, I'm not going to sit outside like an idiot and wait on the darkness. Did you not wait on your blimp? I could have waited. It's going to be dark when we go outside.
All right, so I'm watching this, and good on CBS TNT for realizing, all right, you know what? Let's just go with the NBA team. It makes me jealous as a hockey fan. Every time I tune into that show, Danger, they're having some fun.
Yeah, they're
you don't have to give X and O at all time.
It starts with having a character. That Barkley's character is nearly unmatched. And if you're talking about NHL characters, I don't hate what they've done. Like ESPN, I think is good, not great. PK Subban is good, not great. I think they're trying, Messier is Messier. But you can't beat Chuck. I mean, like Chuck and Shaq they're just characters. Then Kenny is great. Like they just know how to play off each other.
Kenny is the ultimate straight guy.
Yeah, they're great. And he's not wrong, by the way. Bunch of losers. Like last year when the blimp was in town, all of us, the blimp is here. Bunch of losers. What are you doing?
We're not losers for looking up at the sky.
Oh, the blimp. Oh, the darkness of the eclipse. No. I can understand why he would say it's not his thing. If it's not your thing, I get it. And clearly, Charles Barkley, not a fan of the eclipse yesterday. Bunch of losers looking up at the sky. We've got a show to set up for tomorrow, and we'll be moving into Masters mode.
Oh.
Par 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, you know who the defending champ is. John Rahm.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
John Ram? We'll set up tomorrow afternoon for you here next in the Sports Bar. It's time for Last Call. You can pull up a stool at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326 if you want to join us next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
So tomorrow, we get into full-blown Masters mode. Man, the sports calendar just moves so fast. It's like I forgot. That's this weekend. Man, Tiger is talking and feeling good and feels like he's got one more in him. Like you're just saying all the right things that just tantalize me and pull me in. I'll be paying attention.
Can I hit something to get us in the mood here, Danger?
Of course. Wait, you have something on your side over there?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Oh, yes. The thrill of victory.
Yeah. I'm one verse off. Here we go. Hit it! You feel our portfolios rising.
Yeah.
Feel like the property, the fine wine, and everything that Augusta is all about.
The celebration of wealth, as Gene Battaglia calls it. The Masters at Augusta. And yet all we ever talk about early in the week is how cheap the concessions are.
I know.
How do wealthy people get wealthy? They don't spend their money, I guess. Certainly not on a chicken sandwich for $8 when you can get one at Augusta for $2.50.
Yeah, do you really need that tall boy that's going to cost you $18?
No,
you don't.
No. Well, tomorrow we will talk some Masters with two of our favorite golf minds. One to give us some winners for the Masters, some projections of who he thinks could come out to get some winning bets on a PJ Glasser, the host of BetQL's Send It In. He stops by as he does every Wednesday afternoon at 3:25. And then joining us at 4:25, the host of Tee to Green in the free-to-download Odyssey app, and the voice you can also hear tonight on the Fan Rochester hosting the Buffalo Sabres. Brian Koziel will stop by with his thoughts.
Yeah, like Brian certainly has his finger on everything here. And I guess one of the stories is like, wait a second, it's not like, shouldn't we have this merger by now between the PGA and LIV? Everybody's going to play nice this week, but what about these LIV golfers now that they're going to be on the Augusta track?
And I want to see how they perform versus the PGA golfers. I mean, if Scotty Scheffler is your shining example of what a PGA golfer is, how does he stack up against the LIV guys that seem to rise up for these majors, whether you're talking about Brooks or John Rahm, whoever it might be? It'll be a compelling weekend, no doubt, and Brian Cozy will help set us up for the Masters tomorrow afternoon at 4:25. PJ Glasser and all of our insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Now, if you missed Amerks head coach Seth Appert, or if you missed Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills from the Syracuse Post-Standard, you can get those conversations on demand wherever you pod. Just search out the Sports Bar. That includes the free-to-download Odyssey app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. The Sports Bar. You'll get all of our guest appearances and shows listed for you right there, hour by hour. We appreciate you checking that out, and we appreciate you checking us out online as well on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, our stream on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. So we'll talk to you again tomorrow afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock. Gino, have a great night.
Thanks, you too, Tange.
JR Sport Brief. On the way next on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.